So let's see here. So what I'm talking about today is, and I'm assuming a lot of folks are very familiar with the universal design for learning. If you're not, just check it out. It's really a um, cool concept. And I actually stumbled into it when I started teaching at the University of Louisville in 2000, August of 2000. So it's 26 years now. And I love how LinkedIn told me about that. Getting all these nice messages about, hey, congratulations on your work anniversary. And yeah, so now it's been 30 years of L&D practice. And actually, how I got into universal design of learning was kind of trying to build these accessible online courses. I was really working a lot with accessibility in the classroom when I was teaching in the classroom and working with different students and different, issues that they may have or different barriers they may have or challenges. And I got into the universal design for learning because I was doing a lot more online teaching. And one thing that kind of interests me about that is I was teaching a web development course, and I would record my lectures, and then I would do demos, and then I would have like these guides that I created. And I just did this unintentionally and realized that students would like to work one way or the other. They'd like to watch the video and they can slow me down, they can speed me up, they can stop at certain points. So I was really got interested in how that kind of worked for training, and especially with adult training that I do. So I'm going to jump into this. And my big thing about training, it's all about behavior change. It's really not about delivering content. I mean, content's important, but the whole idea, and I got this from the ROI, Phillips ROI, return on investment training, is that you got the first levels. Do people like the training? Are they learning something? And then you want to see a behavior change that has, on the fourth level, a positive impact on the organization. In the fifth level, is it efficient? Is it effective and efficient and it's getting what you want? And in many cases here with behavior change training, often it's not the content that's a problem. It's just that people think about one type of learner, and usually people kind of design for themselves. So how you like to learn is pretty much what you're going to do to design for yourself. So you have one kind of learner, they have one way to perceive, one way to act, one way to stay motivated. There's just one thing here, and this is starting to exclude people. And when you have this training, if you teach a behavior change only one way, there's just no redundancy, no reinforcement to survive a stressful, unpredictable workday. So when I redid that program, the one I got the 11 to 1 return, that was supervisor training. And the whole idea was helping new supervisors learn how to have good performance conversations with their people, how to do coaching and mentoring. And I use all kinds of different ways to bring that home because people respond to things. And again, I'm not bringing up the whole learning type, theory, which has been discredited, but the basic thing is that people learn better when you can reinforce it in several different ways. Because if you just count on it, the getting it the one time, that's really not going to be effective for you. That's why with advertisement, that's why they keep beating you over the head in different ways. And I've heard before in the advertising industry, if you want to really get someone's attention and get them to start buying, you have to do it at multiple times. So this is kind of the idea here. And universal design for learning is just amazing for doing this. So what we're going to talk about, what we're going to do today is we're going to reframe, and we're going to talk about universal design for learning as a behavior change engine, not just a checklist, not just something you just click off, I did this and I did this, but really thinking about using the phases to help you do the behavior change. Because each UDL principle, we can map it onto the stage of habit formation. And we're going to talk about some before and after redesigns and show you some federal return on investment data. And then I'm going to want you to take this home with you and actually try it. So we're going to give you a starter framework so you can take maybe one of your training modules or something like that and, do this and reframe this and see how that works for you. Because really, you don't learn anything until you try it. So, like I said, I'm not going to go into too much detail about universal design for learning, but let me give you the 30-second version here. There's three principles: representation, action and expression, and engagement. And it's basically with representation, it's the what of learning, multiple ways to perceive and comprehend the information. And then we're going to have multiple ways to navigate, practice, and demonstrate the skill. That's the how of the learning. And then we're going to have the engagement. Why are we learning this? And why do I need this? And that helps people stay motivated and help self-direct them so they'll want to get more information, more learning to help them really sustain what they've learned so far. So it's what, how, and why. Representation, action, expression, and engagement. And these are easily mapped. Okay. So again, these are accessibility features, and there's different ways to use these principles, but they're also a behavior change engine. So each principle solves a specific failure point in how humans form new habits, and not just a specific disability barrier. So you can use this with folks that have disabilities or people that are, don't have disabilities. It's going to work the same. And it's actually, when I have built my courses around UDL principles, it's great for all the students because people, they act, they perceive, they stay motivated in different ways. And when you use UDL, you're removing barriers, and this helps also by building in the redundancy and reinforcement behaviors. And according to the science, and there's a lot of good learning science about this, it's not enough just to learn in the classroom a new behavior. You got to fix it so that they can survive a stressful, unpredictable workday. So when I was teaching new supervisors, we would talk about coaching and mentoring, having performance reviews and those performance conversations. It's great when you're in the classroom and you got some folks role playing with you and you get kind of relaxed and all this. But one of the things I would do is also have the supervisors go into a situation where they have a disgruntled employee or they've made some kind of mistake or something. Now they have to kind of work that back with the employee. And I wanted them to feel like what may happen on the job realistically. And in some cases, we would, recreate the offices people would work in and have not just other people that are participating in the class, but actual employees come in and role play with these folks and give them more of this is what you're really going to face on your workplace. And this is how you need to work with that. And when you can do that, that's going to make the lessons work better. So there's four stages of behavior change, and we're going to map these to the three parts of the universal design of learning. And the first one is awareness. Okay, so we just have to know what we're trying to do. So we have to be aware. So when I worked with supervisors and I was teaching them coaching, a couple of things I taught them about coaching was how to ask deep or powerful questions and then deep listening. So I had to introduce them first to what is deep listening, what are powerful questions, and then we would try them out and we would do kind of in a scaffolded way. And what we mean by that is have all kinds of support. And as the supervisors got better with it, we would take away some of the scaffolding and then we would have, help people adopt those behaviors. Now, when we did this, one of the things I insisted on with my managers or my upper management was we wanted sustainment. It wasn't enough just take the course, do it a couple of days or so, do some role play, do some stuff, and then we adopted these behaviors, and then we just throw them out there and leave the learners to on their own to keep sustaining it. I insisted on having emails sent to them, having refresher training stuff to make sure that the behavior change was going to stick. Okay. So one of the examples I like to give, and I know some of you are parents out there, and I have some friends that are, new parents right now. When you toilet train a kid, you don't just show them the toilet once, show them how to use it, and then walk off. You want to sustain that, okay? That's how it gets ingrained into the child's mind. A lot of same things with different things we work with in our own workplace. You don't want to show it to them once and then walk off. You want to make sure that you have refresher lessons when people need those. So here's how we take at the top here, you can see awareness and trial, adoption, and sustainment. That's the behavior change stages. And I've mapped this to the universal design for learning actions here: representation, action and expression, engagement. And what's really cool when I put this together, and I noticed that like representation has two components, and trial overlaps on action and expression, and then action and expression overlaps on engagement. So it's kind of nice stairway too on this. So we're going to show you how to put this in there and how to work with this. So part one here, representation, that solves for awareness, okay? Now, if I just show you something once in one channel, let's say I just give you a PDF and I say, hey, read this PDF. And after that, we'll have a quiz and then we'll let you go. That's not going to really land with a lot of folks. It may with some people that like to read and they can remember what they read and it's their preferred method of learning. Not to say we all learn in one way. Again, I don't want to go into learning theory, but anyway, what we're talking about here is like do it in different ways. So when I was doing the web development stuff, which can be very technical, you could watch a video of me talking about the concepts. You could watch a video of me also demonstrating in real time a screen recording of how I was doing this with the tool. You can also go through a PDF workbook that I would give you, which had step-by-step instructions. Try it yourself. And also, I would bring in some YouTube videos to say, hey, here's some other ways to do with the same thing. So lots of multiple channels here, visual, verbal, written, peer stories, all those different things here. And I had discussion boards where I asked the students to describe how they solved those different problems. And again, this is all about just kind of repetition over time and really helps make the person really aware of what they're trying to change to, what is the concepts, the knowledge and stuff, and what is required of them of the behavior change. And then we have the action expression. This is the trial and adoption. Again, in many places, some folks think there's only one accepted way to practice demonstrate the new behavior. So, and that may be true of things. I mean, there may be, and I work with some folks that are in first aid or emergency responders, and there may be one way to handle a case where a broken bone has occurred or someone is bleeding out or something like that. But also kind of talking about different ways to demonstrate that and letting people try that out. So, of course, you want to have low stakes practice starting off with and just kind of role play it and such. And then you want to say to folks, okay, now we just show this to you. Tell me how you would do this, having teachbacks. And teachbacks, honestly, I think that's one of the most underused tools we have in training. Because in some cases, okay, I've demonstrated how to do this. Now I take someone up to the board. And I know that's scary, but I say, okay, I'm showing you how to build the website image this way. Now you demonstrate it to the class how you would build it and how you would, either do what I did or if you have another way to do it, demonstrate that. Because in some cases, you think you got it, and I have it all the time, and not just my students, but the adult learners. I got it, I got it, I got it. Okay, well, show me. Show me how you would do it. That's when you realize, I don't got it. Because it's easy to watch someone else do it and say, I got that. But it's not as easy to do it yourself. So I always kind of laugh at folks that watch sports, like let's say figure skating or something, with football or soccer or something. Say, oh, I can do that. Okay, get out there and try. And it may look easy, but it takes a lot of practice to get that way. And I'm a believer in job aids and templates. Okay. So three, now we've gotten there and we have the engagement piece. So we've gotten people aware and we have them trying it out and they're practicing with it. And we want to make sure that they're fully engaged, that they're watching and seeing and how it works, because this is how they're going to sustain it. Because again, I've been in these situations before where I have shown people how to do things and I've trained them on how to do stuff. And the thing I've seen sometimes is like I taught them on Monday and I come to their office on Friday and I ask them, "Hey, what did you learn? Can you show it to me?" And they've forgotten. I mean, we forget things pretty fast because there's a lot of stuff that hits us during the day and hits us at work. And even with the best intentions, people are going to forget stuff. So you got to make sure you keep engaging to help sustain that. I remember when I was at Navy Inspector General's office and they want me to teach their Inspector Generals critical thinking. And one of the things I argued for is, well, yeah, I could do a 2 hours. This is what they wanted. They wanted a 2 hour class on critical thinking. And I said, yes, we could do that. And what I'd like to ask for too is could I send after that class a weekly email, just a short email, and talk about some critical thinking principle? And just, 5 minutes, the person can read the email, kind of be reminded of it. And also, I wanted to train the supervisors in, and I should have phrased this better. When they catch their people thinking on the job, I want them to know how to praise them for it and how to reinforce that behavior. And that took a little bit of work to get that, but the reason I kept putting it is I wanted to sustain that behavior change. Because even if you take the best notes, even if you have the best intentions, a 2 hour workshop on critical thinking, it's just a start. and you still got to go and work with that critical thinking skill and keep practicing it. You just don't learn it once. And I think it was interesting when I was talking to the admiral, and the way I won him over, said, "Well, and looked around his office. There's all these golf trophies." And I said, "It's like this. I mean, when you learn how to play golf, you didn't just go out once and learn how to hit the ball, and then you just go and do stuff, right? You're practicing all the time, and that's what got it. You got to practice. You got to sustain that. So." When we have this three steps here, choice, let the learners pick the path, tool, or cadence that fits with their not job and what they work with in their job, show the relevance. There's so much training sometimes, and I have to spend a lot of time marketing it just to the case of this is why the training is important. And then let the person kind of self-regulate, reflect upon what they're learning, build in some self-check-ins. I mean, again, another thing I think we do in training, not enough, is doing the reflection piece. So I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm going to take a look at the chat. If you have any questions or anything, go ahead and throw those into the chat, and I'll be glad to address those. I've built this to really end about 30 minutes or so we have some time for discussion. And if we leave early, I don't think anyone's going to mind that. But here is where most programs quietly narrow themselves. And you may say, well, where is your citation on this? This is from what I've seen, okay? And this is from my general impression on programs. So we get 100% awareness. We spend a lot of time on building that awareness. And people will come in, and I've seen it on the level 1 and level 2 evaluations. Okay, yeah, I think they have learned something and they are at least aware of what we're trying to talk about. It's the I'm sitting back and I'm watching you passively. I got it, I got it. And then we go to the trial, which we don't do as much of, and that's about maybe 78% of that sells, 78% of our programs, where we have them actually try it and then see if they've got it. And then there's the adoption. Okay, so again, in some cases with training programs, I see where they don't really sell the need for this training. And, we just have this compliance training about customer service. We don't really practice it enough or whatever. We just say, hey, be nice to people. And then you see folks kind of go back and they don't take the customer service principles in place. And then the lowest one here is sustainment. And I've seen this before with post training surveys, 30 days after, 60 days after, 90 days after, and just watch everything that they said they learned in that first level survey, it's gone. Okay, and let's see. Oh, question here is how do we delineate between doing what you're suggesting and teaching the learning styles? Well, again, learning styles, research on that. I mean, people do have ways they like to learn, but there's no one specific way that people, like if you're a visual learner, you say you're a visual learner or you're an auditory learner, doesn't mean you can't learn visually, doesn't mean you can't learn auditory. And one of the things I like with the universal design of learning is you're actually answering the what, how, and why of the training. So that's the best way to get people in. Okay. So how do we delineate between what you're suggesting and teaching the learning styles? We'll do the what, how, and why of the training, and that you'll be able to cover those. And then think about different ways to just deliver the information. So again, like I was talking about with my web development class, I have a video of me talking about the concepts, another video of me basically a screen recording doing the thing, and then also job aids to give to the students where they can do the thing and have some help there with that scaffolding. So there's all kinds of different ways. So I don't look at is it visual, is it verbal, or is it reading? I look more at like how many ways can we approach the subject? Okay, so the same idea with the critical thinking. Critical thinking concepts. I talked about a critical thinking model. Then how we can practice that in real life. Then we have some role playing and have people kind of go back and forth and talk about critical thinking, how you can apply it to this situation. And then a job aid, which was basically a critical thinking model on one page that they could put up above their desk and look at and work with, and some checklists they can use. So I hope that answered your question there.
Hey, Bill, I got another question. This one's from Cindy
Hmm.
Nagel in the QA. For IDs that would like to extend their learning with a formal UDL certificate, what do you recommend?
Mm. Okay, I'm not really too sure about the UDL certificates. I know there's some out there, and I had some about, oh gosh, about 6, 7 years ago. I looked at, so I don't know what the current state of it is right now. And I have to say, I was kind of lucky because I work at University of Louisville, And we have a group called Delphi Center, and they actually offered UDL for college professors. And I had the institution's homegrown certificate. So don't think it's available to everyone, but I mean there is certainly certifications out there for it.
Okay. I
So,
think Nicole may have posted one in chat.
oh,
So,
okay, there you go, right there. Okay, perfect. Yeah, sorry about that. I got to tell you, one thing about the quarantine when it happened is I had a lot of time that I didn't have to go commute, and I went credential crazy, and I have about 30 to 40 different certificates and lots of things. So I tell you, trying to keep up with the requirements is crazy. Like I often joke about I need a certificate and managing my certificates. So anyway, let's take a look at a case here. This is a federal compliance refresher. And before and after, you know, it's like as you are a person who wants to work with this stuff, this UDL. So before, and this is from a real case, I'm just not going to give you the title or who, but there was a single 60-minute video, very well done, good narrator, no transcript, just you got to watch the video. Then we gave you a quiz at the end, and no follow-up after course completion. And what happened was is that, well, we saw who took this video, who took the quiz, how well they did on it, and we had that and we reported it, but we never looked at the behavior on the job. And again, this is one of these compliance courses. It could be sexual harassment, it could be how to handle a purchase card, stuff like that. And the point was is that if you took the course, you sat in the chair, okay, you got your certificate, and there you go. And what I like with UDL, when you take a look at those principles we talked about with UDL, is that you can do a short video, one-page visual, manage your talking points. I got to say this, and not to give a plug for a book. I just wrote a book called Fill Every Seat, and there's a couple of chapters in there about how important it is to get the manager involved and really tell the manager about the training, tell them why it's important. Because you have some folks that may be excited about get the training, but you got the manager says, "Oh, I can't let these people go. I mean, we got a crazy time right now. I need everyone on hand, all hands on deck." Till I was in the Navy, and you know, I just can't let them go. So in a lot of cases, it's you're not only selling the student on what you're trying to tell them, you also have to sell the manager so they can let those folks go and learn. And really, the best person to help you with the follow-up is the manager, because if you have the manager come into the person's office and say, "Well, I saw that you went on the training. What did you learn and how are you going to use it?" Oh my gosh, that person will now pay attention if they know that question's coming. Okay? So get the managers to talk that. Okay, let me get back to this. So we got choice of scenario practice, written reflection, or peer teach back. And why I give these different options. I like in my introduction, we do trauma informed training. I do a lot of trauma informed training, and in some cases, some people they don't want to just show up in front of everyone and try to say something. So I've seen this with students, and actually, when I was working at the college, I did a lot of work with communication apprehension. And there are some students that they'll rush to the front of the classroom and will talk all day if you want them. And then there's some that are very scared to talk. And I try to set it up so that we can help the students who are not as introverted or not as extroverted or not as comfortable with talking in front of their peers have different ways of doing stuff. So they can have written practice and reflection and such, because I don't want to have any barriers to people participating. Okay. And giving them different options on how they can show and demonstrate what they've learned, that's a good way to do the UDL and also help them take away that fear of learning and actually get into the knowledge there. And there's a lot of stuff, and I can go into polyvagal theory and such, but that's what I found works for me. And then again, 30, 60, 90-day nudges. Email is great. Maybe a refresher, talk at lunch or something, just to help people and get that implied to their work situation. All right. And you want to track on-the-job behavior. And you don't just have to observe them. You can also take a look at different statistics like, well, how's turnover, how's productivity, things like that, where you're not really interfering with the person or they feel like they're being tracked in a bad way, but you can see the change in the statistics that the organization collects on the work. So this is one I actually used here for the coaching, new manager feedback skills program. And the whole idea here is we were talking about coaching habits, coaching and mentoring habits. So we did one live role play and we had one for every, manager, and they would do this. and we would have feedback delivered only in the classroom and make sure it's good, positive feedback. Here's some good stuff you did. Here's some stuff that you could work on. Really want to help encourage people to take the feedback and work with it. And one of the things with this is that once you finish the workshop, that was success. And I wanted to make sure that we had it go further. So I kind of jumped into my gray into blue. And also, again, look at the person. Managers who froze during role play where Mark needs coaching didn't really push people like that, okay? There's different ways of handling these things. So I had a scenario bank. I matched it to each manager's real team situation. What I mean by that, if you're a manager from finance, you have different conversations than people that have than managers at IT department or in the HR department or in patents. I was talking about patents here or trademark examination. We could do role play, written script, or recorded rehearsal, whatever people felt more comfortable with, and try to work with them a little bit. If they weren't as comfortable being in front of folks in a role play, I try to work with them a little bit to kind of get them to that point if they wanted, if they really wanted to. And it's kind of takes a little bit of judgment. You got to see what people's tolerance is. And success, instead of, okay, you finished my workshop, instead, how about a feedback conversation logged on the job? And I had the manager report, self-report on this and how they felt about it and how they felt they could do, what they did well, what they could do better, and really kind of took away the pressure from it, but made them reflect on what they were working on. And then we just had the self-paced check-in, replaced the one-time grading. I mean, you took my workshop, we graded you. Nope, we did self-paced check-ins. I just check in by email. Did you have this kind of conversation? How did it go for you? So, inclusive design and return on investment, they're not competing priorities. And you can actually put both in there. And universal design for learning is great when you're doing return on investment tracking too. Okay. So you can look at the sustained behavior at 90 days. When we did this training, how are we doing with this? Is we getting the return on investment with the training? But we're also seeing, is the student satisfied? Is the manager satisfied? And how are we doing with completion across all the different groups? And we can do all kinds of different things here to measure that. Some you do direct observation or surveys. Some you can do indirect observations. There's all kinds of different ways to measure things. One book that I liked using is something called Measure Anything, and I have used that to help me measure all kinds of training metrics out there in creative ways. So here's your starter framework, and we're getting kind of close there to my 30 minutes I promised. You can take a module this week. Don't overhaul the curriculum. Don't do a new budget or anything. Just take a module and think about, is this a unit where the sustainment is weak? Okay. It might be great content, great ways to present it, but are people learning this stuff and then still using the behavior change afterwards? And if you don't think so, and you can always do a survey with this, or if it's just your own kind of professional judgment, go there and run it on the mapping grid. Take a look at the UDL, Universal Design for Learning Behavior Change Tool from slide 7. That's the one where we have the grid there. If you remember the four behavior change steps versus the 3 steps of the UDL. And think about that and map this module to it and just find the gap. Identify which stage is only one principle covering it. So, in other words, it could be we're great making people aware, but we're not really doing an experience enough for them to kind of practice that enough. And then you can think about one out alternative. Now, I say this emphatically. Introduce one new format, maybe a practice option or an engagement tactic. Don't try to do 10 at once. I get some people so excited and they try to do all these different things they're thinking of, and you're just going to confuse the learner, confuse yourself, and you're not going to get a good measure out of it. Okay. Try introducing one new thing and then seeing how that works. And if that works well, you might want to introduce something else. Okay. But, see where it goes right there and establish that baseline. So, 5 things to take with you. The UDL 3 principles are a behavior change engine. They're not just an accessibility checklist. So it's not something you can just check off here. You can also use that to help you design. And many times the training fails as sustainment, not awareness. We're really good, I think, as learning professionals at making people aware of stuff and explaining things. I think we're incredible at that. But what it is getting people to the engagement piece enough so they don't say, "Yeah, I got it, I got it, I got it," and then you ask them to prove it, and they don't got it. In other words, here, it's helping them sustain that behavior afterwards because there's so much pressure at work and there's so much that's pulling at them. And that's why with my mentoring and coaching with my supervisors, there's so much they have to deal with, and I would help them sustain that because it took some time to, really keep that behavior going. You got the mapping grid. It's on slide 7. I know we were going to have a recording of this, and if you want a copy of the slides, I'm certainly glad to give them to you. I'll pop my email in the chat here. And again, inclusive design and measurable ROI, they're basically joined at the hip. They can really help each other reinforce what you're trying to do. And try redesigning one module this week. Don't have to do a complete overhaul. I'm certain your content's amazing and you don't need a new budget, but just how can I help build up the sustainability? That's what you're going. That's what your goal is. So let's go ahead and if you want to, we can open up for questions. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing here. And when you're ready to pop on, Lewis, go ahead.
All right. Nice. Let's see if we get any questions in here. How about, Bill, can you give us an example of something that you recently redesigned?
Okay, let's see here. What did I redesign, right? I've been doing so much. I'm trying to think of a good one for this. Oh, yeah, I just recently built a whole series of modules for the University of Maryland. They have a program with edX, and it was all about vibe coding.
Hmm.
And that's the kind of new thing the kids are doing nowadays. But basically, you go talk to the AI, and you tell it what you want it to build, and it'll code it for you. And then you kind of go back and forth and back and forth. And, you can finally get an application out of it. And what I did with that, and it's all online. It's through the Coursera and edX platform. So not a very sophisticated LMS in my opinion. It's really kind of bare bones. There's PowerPoint and I talk over it. But I did use these principles here because it's a complex topic, using the AI to build it for you and kind of had to build a how do you know you've gotten to where you want to? And a large part with AI is AI will build whatever you want, even if it makes no sense. And I've seen that happen before. So it's like, how do I scope out what I want and what am I trying to do with this application? Because I have seen before with people that just, oh, I wanted to do this and I want to do that. And it's like, well, that's great. Um, Let me stop sharing here. But what are you actually trying to achieve with this application? So that's how I built those universal design learning principles in there. All right. So we have awareness. We know what vibe coding is. We know how it works. We know how AI works. Then trying out a lot of things. So you got to watch me do it on the screen, and I would give you exercises.
Hmm.
And then I really couldn't check in with people 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days after because I can't do a survey or anything. So I built up a lot of job aids where you kind of self-scored yourself
Hmm.
and you essentially would, do a review of how you're working with this and what you've learned and how it would, how it's working, let's say 30 days from now. How do you like your application? Have you developed new ways of doing it? And have you figured out ways to be more efficient and more effective with your application development?
Okay.
So that was a lot of fun.
Interesting. All
Hmm.
right. All right. Jennifer's asking, what would be some good examples in practice if you are going before faculty and trying to help them make their content accessible, use UDL?
Yeah. So again, it's one of the things, and I deal with, some training with other faculty members and such. And I mean, I just go with the what, how, and why questions. And in many cases with faculty, and I work in higher education here with faculty, great experts on what they know. And I often joke about how we may have these mathematicians that are so advanced, they forgot how to add. And one of the things talk about the beginner's mind. So it's again, like, what are your lessons about? So, the how, the what, and why, and how do we structure our lessons that way? So again, it's the awareness, and many professors are great at awareness. They overwhelm you with awareness. It's all content, and I'm thinking, what? How do you have them practice that? And what does it look like for someone, let's say, oh, just someone I worked with recently, someone that is very knowledgeable about criminology. Okay. What does it look like to be a good criminal investigator? What kind of thought patterns do you have to have? What kind of habits do you have to cultivate? I mean, how do you just, I mean, TV makes it look so simple. You go to a crime scene, you see clues. Well, how does that actually work? How do you know what's a clue and what isn't a clue? Because, you go to this crime scene, someone's bedroom, somewhere out in the street, there's all kinds of things. How do I know what to pick out? You know? And then how do I help people kind of sustain that thinking? How do they keep that going and how do they kind of improve on their knowledge? Because the class itself, that's a one-time event in many cases, even if you take it for a semester. Now, how do you sustain that afterwards? And it's with our communication classes. I mean, we have a class on public speaking. We have you for 16 weeks. After that, how do I keep you going? How do I keep you and continuing to refine your practice?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I hope that
Interesting.
made sense.
When you're practicing UDL in different environments. So, for instance, is your approach different if you're like saying government or academic or corporate, or is it basically consistently the same?
Pretty much the fundamentals are the same. Again, it's looking at, what, how, and why, and what we're trying to learn here. So, like example, I'm building some courses for government project managers and how to actually partner with AI because in many cases they fear like AI is going to be taking away their job. And let's be honest, there's a lot of things that project managers can do. Not, I mean, all of things, but many things they can do that can be automated. But there's also things that I really don't want the AI to make decisions on. So when I'm coming to that, I'm thinking, well, what, how, and why? And I call this judgment premium. What should we automate? And I have a triage chart for that. And what should we leave for judgment? Okay. So if it's creating an annual report, or not an annual report, but let's say a weekly report, status report, you could probably automate that. But if you have something, you have a government project manager putting together a risk register and which risks should we take, focus on. I don't know if I want to leave that to the AI. I want to have someone that has some experience in that field that can make those judgments because, AI, we can train it on what everyone else has done before, but what if there's something new and it doesn't know what to do there? And AI is not smart enough to know what it doesn't know. We've
Hmm.
seen that happen. So it's kind of that blending there. So one thing I do with government project managers is help them think about their careers and how to focus on, well, here's AI helping me with this. It's a very bright intern, but what should I be talking to my managers about? And what should I be, focusing on, which is my judgment and the judgment I had for experience and over the years.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay. So I can see sort of that distinction. All right. Let's see. Anybody else want to have a question they'd like to add? Let me just check QA real quick. Not seeing anything there.
you might be like my students at the end of the day. Let's go home now.
And it's just day one. No, I mean, there really is. I think that's one of the reasons why I like to build in the 1 hour block in between sessions so that
Hmm.
people aren't just hammered with like, you know, every
Oh yeah.
hour, like
Oh
more
yeah.
new information.
Hmm.
So that's why I do provide those middle breaks
Oh yeah.
pretty much for reflection, I think is what's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting when I'm mentoring new trainers and such, and I say you have workshop, build in your breaks and give them good breaks because your mind needs time to reflect
Yeah.
and put it into your knowledge.
Right.
I've
Right.
been in these training sessions where, oh my gosh, are we just going to keep going?
I hear you. I hear you. All right. Well, I think, okay, we're at Cindy's here. I'm still surprised that UDL principles are not more prominent in corporate environments. Education
Hmm.
does a decent job.
Yeah. And I think it's because, maybe it might be the labeling or whatever, but it's like UDL and how it was essentially sold as helping out people with, disabilities. And it's kind of like some of the things I ran into also, and I'm slowly making some inroads with my trauma-informed leadership training because people don't really want to think about trauma and they don't want to really think about, the nervous system and things like that. And it's like it feels kind of soft and squishy, as one person put it to me. This is a Marine colonel.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's just like, well, when you look at the population and 85% of adults have experienced some kind of trauma in their life, and taking that into account when we're doing the training can help you get people from that kind of fight, flight, or fright, stage or freeze, excuse me, freeze into what we call rest and digest, where they can take in the new information.
Right.
And I did a talk like this last week on just why is psychological safety so important. And it is vital for innovation and problem solving because if you got people fearing for their survival, they're not going to be paying attention to making things more innovative and they're not going to really do problem solving. The only problem solving they're going to do is how can I get myself out of this?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Hmm.
Cindy, I do think like when I reflect on UDL being discussed in past events, it's usually from folks that are either in education or nonprofit, I think,
Hmm.
when I think about it. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions pop up. Bill, I really appreciate your time and coming
Sure.
in once again to DLC to TLDC and sharing your vast wealth of knowledge with us.
Oh, yeah.
I really appreciate you
Well,
being
I
here.
love the opportunities when you let me come and talk. So I hope, this was useful.
Yeah. No, definitely, definitely. Thank you so much.